Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. El Guapo.
Is that how it shows up?
How are you?
Yes.
It does.
I've been busted. My true identity.
Oh, how's my background today? Couple adjustments. That's a 10. So we have a quorum, so we're going to go right into it at 6:45. Everybody doing well?
Couple of minutes early.
Yeah, no, I know it's early. I'm saying, is everyone doing well? There's an echo on mine. Wonder how we can fix that. Elizabeth, do you know how to fix an echo?
No, I'm sorry. I don't.
Oh, it's bad.
Everybody's
Mayor, maybe everyone goes on mute. I think we probably
It's on
have
Rich's.
two different speakers.
Or call back in.
Let's call back in. Okay.
I mean,
I think it's on Rich's. This one's the one that's
And the mayor's trying to.
Is it an echo? Do you know why it's happening?
Are you muted?
No, I'm not muted. How come I'm not?
You're also the co-host, apparently.
Right.
And the host.
How long happened?
I don't know. Very odd.
who's talking?
I don't think it's a.
Can you with him, please, first?
Oh, yeah.
Thank you. It was with him, so maybe it was just on his end.
It's possible.
Because I don't think anyone else.
There.
Okay.
Better?
You have one better.
Oh, that's good.
You do everyone.
Is it?
Okay. This meeting is called to order.
Thank you.
Let's rise for the pledge, please.
Thank you very much, James. Pledge
the United States of America,
America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with
and justice for all.
justice for all.
Elizabeth, will you call the roll, please?
We have Mayor McFadden,
Present.
Deputy Mayor Shaw,
Present.
Trustee Gluck,
Present.
Trustee Kasker,
Here.
and Trustee McHugh.
Present.
Okay, thank you very much. Before we begin the public hearing, I'd like to ask Brian, Village Attorney, to comment on the purpose of this evening's public hearing, because we've had so much ridiculous noise lately. It's time to correct the record. Brian?
Mayor, Brian's not here, but this is John Colasar, and so I can help address your concerns. So
Thank
tonight,
you.
this public hearing is about the discontinuance of a road only. So what's before the board is a parcel of property that borders on the lake. And really the entire purpose of this hearing is to determine whether or not the village believes that this parcel, which is considered an old paper road on the old Tuxedo, Village of Tuxedo Park maps, has any municipal purpose, in this case, a road. If the board determines it does not have any more purpose, it may discontinue that road. It's really up to the board, but that's all that's before the board at this point. There's nothing in regards to sale of property or anything other than what to do with that property, only a determination of whether or not this is a road, if it serves any sort of municipal purpose.
Thank you. And it's also true, John, that we have not accepted a $15,000 offer.
Correct. Right now, the village is not contemplating a sale of that property or accepting offers or anything like that right now. Right now, it's just what's in front of the board tonight is whether to discontinue that paper road.
And John, isn't it true that we have not opened any bid process?
That is correct, Mayor.
I'm here, Mayor, by the way. Brian Nugent's on.
Thank you, Brian. John just gave us a rundown of what this is. We're going to move on to the SECRA resolution. Brian, would you like to explain that to the board and the public, please?
Yeah, so the SECRA is just lead agency designation because, as you know, in the Village of Tuxedo Park, this would normally be an unlisted action. But because the village is designated on the National Register, it's considered a type 1 action. So the village just designates itself as lead agency for SECRA purposes in reviewing the action. There really is no environmental impact, but the board is free to review that issue. For now, you're just announcing yourself as lead agency, and then you can continue on to the public hearing.
Thank you, Brian. I would like I resolve that the Village Board of Trustees declares itself lead agency under the State Environmental Quality Review Act in determining the significance of an action to discontinue a paper road. May I have a second, please?
Second.
Any questions?
I'm sorry, who was that second?
McHugh.
McHugh, thank you.
Any questions, discussion? Okay, we ready to vote? Okay, I'll start. I've been told that my calling of the vote has to be expanded a little bit. So I'll start with Trustee Casker,
Aye.
Trustee McHugh,
Aye.
Trustee Gluck,
Aye.
Trustee Shaw.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. The ayes have it. All right, I'm going to open a public hearing on the discontinuance of a certain village property. Now, I think that the first person I'll call on is Sean Madden, because he also wants to respond to these malicious myth truths that have been spreading around in the last couple of days. Mr. Madden?
Thank
Mayor,
you, Mr.
just
Mayor.
we should
And,
vote. We should
frankly,
vote on the motion to open.
Okay, thank you very much, Brian. I would like to open the public hearing for the discontinuance of a certain road. May I have a second?
Second.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any noes? The ayes have it across the board.
I'm sorry, who
Okay.
seconded it? I'm sorry.
Publicly respond.
Chris
to
Casker.
the
Thank you.
maliciousness true.
Okay,
Aye.
everyone turn their mic off, please. That's not a
Maliciousness
trustee,
truths.
a lawyer, or Elizabeth. Thank you. Okay, so I've opened the public hearing, and I would like to invite Sean Madden to speak first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, let me say that it really saddens me that in our close-knit community, I'm forced to rebut false and defamatory disinformation that's spewed by our malicious neighbor who's on this call. He's impugning the integrity of me, of the mayor, of the entire board, and of this process, none of which has any merit. Claudio's suggestion that there's been some sort of backroom deals and impropriety is a figment of the alternative universe that he seems to inhabit. So for the benefit of the folks who don't know what has actually occurred here, which is quite boring, let me share with you some actual facts that speak to the transparency and integrity of this entire process, which was precipitated by outreach from us. And first we need some background, because I'm sure that the vast majority of people in the village have no idea what this little unpaved paper road is or where it is, and have never been on it. So it's a very short road that has been there a long time, whose sole purpose, going from East Lake Road, happens to go to the lake, seems to be to facilitate the water and sewer pipes that run beneath that road and have for a long time. Those pipes, about 3/4 of the way to the lake, turn south off of the road and travel underneath our boathouse property, and then south under the Bruners property toward the water plant. From the point where the pipes turn
Excuse me,
south.
Sean, can everyone turn their mic off, please? Thank you. We're just getting background noise. I appreciate it. Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Madden.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. From the point where the pipes turn south, for the remainder of the road, such as it is, remember, this is really just dirt, is about 100 feet on a 30-degree grade down to the lake with very little flat ground at all. The reason this little spit of property, which is a road, it's 15 feet wide, and the portion we're talking about tonight is about 100 feet long, again, on a very steep incline from Tuxedo Lake up the hill. My conjecture is the reason this little spit of land has never been used is it was part of the road because it was easy and expedient. It has no use because you can't build on it. It's on a grade. In fact, the notion that it could be a quote unquote park is absurd. It's 15 feet wide. It wouldn't be safe for a child to walk down, which is why we've installed steps pursuant to bar processes to make it safe for people to get to the lakeside. So by happenstance, we came into possession of the only two properties for whom it would make sense to incorporate this little spit of land into land they already own, because we happen to own the properties that this road bisects on either side, north and south of the lake. We have, as I think everyone who's familiar with the bar process knows, made substantial improvements to our boathouse property since we bought it. It had a homemade concrete dock that went into the lake. It now is cantilevered. It does not go into the lake. We substantially improved that property. And the next step for us is to do some landscaping on both the boathouse property and this empty lot that is north of the road that has an historic greenhouse on it, which we also intend to restore. And we're actively working on that. And as we were going down that process, we said to ourselves, well, there's this 15-foot ribbon of land that we don't own, that we want to landscape in a harmonious manner with the other two pieces of property we do own. Our first thought was, well, let's get permission from the village. Well, you don't own that property. That has certain complications. So at that point, we approached the village to purchase the portion of road we're talking about tonight that has no use to the village or any of its residents and has never been used for good reason. We made a written offer, copied to all of the trustees and the village attorney on July 11th of this year. We appeared 2 weeks later at a public board meeting and had a robust discussion about this with the entire board. And in fact, I specifically recall an interchange I had with Trustee Gluck, where we were both in complete agreement that everything about this should be thorough, transparent, and patient. And that's exactly what has happened. Anyone who wants to hear the recording of that meeting can get it from the village office, and TPFYI has a summary of it. We had a little seasonal slowdown and no activity leading up to the election. Following the election, I was notified that this would be discussed at the regularly scheduled October board meeting, also public. And that was the public meeting where this third public meeting was scheduled, as the mayor and village attorney pointed out, for the sole purpose of deciding whether to discontinue the road. Only after the road has been discontinued, and if it has been, may the board do anything with the property. And so that's where we are today. There's nothing nefarious. This piece of property is 15 feet wide. It can't be developed. It can't accommodate people safely. There's really no use for it. We're going to put some plants on it so it looks good, like the rest of the properties we're going to improve that surround it.
All right, Sean, all set? Thank you, Sean.
Yes, thank you.
Would anyone else from the audience, the public, like to comment?
I'd like to comment since my name was taken in vain by Mr. Madden. Just to clear the record, I think I've met Mr. Madden maybe 5 times in my life.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Can you just state for the record your name, please?
Yes, it's Claudio Guazzoni Desanitz.
Thank you.
As I was saying, I met Mr. Madden 5, 6 times in my life, and if his name weren't taped to the bottom of the screen, I couldn't pick him out from all the little photographs tonight. I wish Mr. Madden no ill will whatsoever. It's a figment of someone's imagination, maybe hearsay. My interest is that the park do the correct thing at the right price for the residents. This is a very valuable piece of land.
I'll interrupt you right there.
And
There has been
I'm
no.
sorry, you can
there-
interrupt
no,
me. Mayor,
yes,
this
I
is my
can.
time.
Yes, I
Mayor,
can.
this is
Yes,
my
I
time.
can.
Mayor,
And in fact,
this is my
no, I can
time.
certainly interrupt you. I can also shut
Mayor,
your
this
mic.
is my time. You
Okay,
are
shut
a
his mic.
bully. This is
Shut his mic.
my time. All right? Shut down the truth, Mayor.
Yeah, right. Okay. I'll just say something
This-
and then you can continue to
No,
talk.
you can talk the rest
down
of
his
the meeting.
mic.
This is my 2 minutes. Mayor, it's going to come to
Oh, thank you. Okay, Claudio said that we should receive fair market value for that. That's absolutely true. There has been no acceptance of any offer. As I said earlier in the introduction, the 15K was an offer. We have not negotiated that offer. We have not accepted that offer. Tonight is only about the discontinuance of the road. And frankly, Claudio, as far as I'm concerned, you're done talking tonight. You sent your couple.
Mayor,
nasty-
you're good. This is going to come back to haunt you. You can't shut
Yeah, right.
people down in the public meeting. I
Yeah,
get my
yes, I
2,
can.
3 minutes,
Yes, I
just like
can.
everybody else. Your friend, Mr. Madden, spoke for 5 minutes. Spoke very well,
Excuse
very
me.
eloquently.
You're
We have
lying,
a
and
very valuable piece
can you
of
shut his mic off?
property.
Can you shut his mic off, Elizabeth?
Now, how do I get the sound?
Okay, so Claudio shut off. Okay,
Oh,
thank
here
you.
we go.
All right. I think Claudio's missives that he sent out over the last couple of days speak for his credibility. He's accused me and others on the board of all sorts of improprieties. And here's what I have to say about that, okay? If Claudio feels that he has anything
Close that door.
worthwhile about ethics or transparency or accusations that he's made against myself, he is welcome, and I invite him to contact the Ethics Board of Orange County, the DA of Orange County, the Comptroller of the state, the Attorney General of the state, or any lawyer that he would like to contact to bring this matter to the fore. And you will see that he will not do that because there is nothing. Okay, so thank you very much, Claudio. We don't need any more of that tonight. Anyone else have any comments, please, from the public?
I would like to hear from Claudio.
Who's this?
Michelle Merson. I don't think that anybody should be cut off.
Well,
Why-
that's
why
our
should he be cut off?
prerogative. That's my prerogative.
It's a public hearing,
It's a
David.
public hearing.
It's appropriate to let him speak. That's Joanne Hanson.
Okay.
We can all make our own, we don't need you to filter it. We can all make our own decision after hearing from him.
Okay. That said, let's open his mic.
Sorry. I'm sorry, I'll get there.
No, here it looks terrible.
I'm not.
I think you have to unmute.
There he goes. There he goes.
All right, if Mr. Madden wants this parcel, it should be put up to auction and he participate in an auction process. This is the only way a fair market value can be achieved on a piece of land that is owned by the village, just like any asset in the village. If it's worth nothing, like Mr. Madden says, if it's a pittance of dirt, a little strip of vegetation, then no one's gonna come up and bid for it. But if it's indeed a wonderful and desirous strip of land where one can go and enjoy the lakeside view, especially if one is not part of the lake community, I think there are certain people that are willing to bid quite readily. I myself submitted a $50,000 bid today officially. Mr. Madden, I used your templates. Changed the numbers so they can compare apples to apples. I used your survey. I used your language. I just changed the price. So we have a $15,000 offer and we have a $50,000 offer on the same piece of land on an apples to apples paragon. Thank you, Mayor, for allowing me to speak.
Okay, anyone else?
Hi, this is Richard Verlack.
Hi, Richard.
Yes, in talking about the valuation of that piece of property, perhaps you can clear something up for me. As I understand it, if you want to belong to the Village Boat Club, you do not have to live in the park, but you must need to own a piece of property in the park. So would not anybody who bought that piece of property, regardless of the size of the property, then have full access to joining the Tuxedo Park Boat Club?
I believe that you have to have a residence. Paul, is that correct?
I don't believe that's the case because Tom Salerno, who set up the club, doesn't live in the park anymore, but does continue to own land in the park.
Mr. Verlac, it's the owners. Resident is not sufficient.
Rich, were you able to hear that?
I'm not sure. Could you repeat that for me, please?
In terms of eligibility for membership to the Village Boat Club, I believe you're correct. It's open to village property owners, taxpayers specifically, not residents.
Okay, so that would mean that if I, as a resident, left the community, I could buy that property and continue to have lake rights, or for that matter, an outside company can come in, purchase the property, and then that corporation would have lakefront access and the ability to join the boat club.
The lake is not a code compliant.
Could you repeat that? I'm sorry.
The lot is not code. Violates the code. It's not legal.
No, you're assuming that somebody's going to be using the land as opposed to just using the ownership of the land to join the boat club.
No, read the code. You can't create a new lot compliant with 500.
Okay, so I guess the only point that needs to be discussed now is what are the ramifications of dissolving that paper road, and would it impact the boat club usage? And if not, what would it impact besides your use of the property?
What we're discussing tonight is whether or not the village wants to discontinue ownership of the road because it's no value to the village. That's what we're discussing tonight.
What's going to be the criteria that the village uses to make that determination, whether there is a value or no value to that lot?
All right, I'll ask the village attorney to step in on that.
Yeah, right now, the question before the board is whether that road has a public use. If the board determines that the road doesn't have a public use anymore, it's just to continue the road.
Richard, mute your thing, Richard. That might help. Rich Verlac, mute your thing.
We're having a bad echo. Everybody experiencing that?
It's Richard.
There we go. It's better now. So if the board decides to discontinue the road, it will still own the property. That at the end of this public hearing, the village will still own that piece of property. That's not what's before the board. All that's before the board is whether to discontinue the road because it doesn't serve a public use anymore.
What is the harm or negative aspect of leaving the road designated as it currently is?
Well, right now it's considered like a public, excuse me, a paper road. It was determined as an abandoned road at some point in time before, you know, I was around, but it really just exists as like a dirt parcel right now. It's not paved, it's nothing. So it's really just determining whether or not a road that exists on a map, whether that serves a public use.
What was the public use that was deemed when the road officially became a road?
It never became a road. It's only been a paper road, and it was specifically when the park was built, and they wanted there's water pipes and sewer pipes that go down part of that road from East Lake Road, not all the way to the lake, and not on the property that we're discussing tonight. But there are a number of paper roads in the village that were used and cleared for access in case there was ever a need to get to those pipes.
Are we going to be getting rid of all those paper roads, or is there something specific about this paper road that requires you to address it?
Yes. The reason we're dealing with this is because we have a resident interested in purchasing it.
Well, and David, can I just speak real quick, Mac? This is Aileen Bruner, who obviously has some interest in this discussion. And, when we're talking about the road, we're talking about the end of the road, a third of the road. The 2/3 of the road that we're going to continue as a paper road, I guess the concern what I would have is, we use that as an easement to our property that we would not want to be in the mix to be sold at a different time. So I think that, that has to be thought about as well. Obviously, we want the, we had no problem when the Maddens wanted to purchase that lower third of the road. But, I think the discussion about paper roads has to be maybe a little bit thought about. And, if we're going to do this, we want to make sure we're talking about the lower third of this road, not the entire road.
Yeah, no, we're talking about the lower third. And I think, I can't speak for everyone on the board, but I don't think it would make sense to then sell the other portion of the paper road because it would interfere with your egress and the egress to the Madden Boathouse. So if that were sold, I think it would stop I just don't think the village could legally do it.
Right.
Because it would prevent egress to property that's owned by Madden and you.
Mr. Mayor, may I suggest an alternative to the current process?
Sure.
Which obviously is generating a lot of interest. I think there's a lot of misunderstanding about what's going on. This has gotten way more complex and contentious than we ever had any appetite for. We don't need this little spit of road. What I would suggest as an alternative for you to consider is maybe discontinue this public hearing and consider an alternative, which is maintain the status quo. Leave it as the paper road. We will formally ask for permission to landscape that lower portion of the paper road pursuant to a bar-approved landscaping plan. At the same time, we're willing to make a donation to the village that in the form of financing the Zoom equipment, which I know you guys are talking about, which is important to us. And I think the number of people on this call is a demonstration of the process working when people can access it. That, from my point of view, would maintain the status quo. Nobody can sue anybody about it. The village will get some benefit. We're going to beautify the property, and we can put all this nonsense to the side. From my perspective, that's a perfectly sensible and legal alternative that you should consider. We're also willing to go forward and buy the road. That is marginally better for us to, increase the footprint. And they're not apples to apples comparisons because our offer uniquely absorbs the road into an existing lot as opposed to creating a new lot that is not code compliant. And of course it's not code compliant. So the notion that we would stand idly by and let someone buy that spit of land illegally is nonsense. It's either going to maintain the status quo or it's going to come to us. There's no other legal or sensible alternative. And folks need to understand that. And if the board doesn't want to go through with this process, I think there's an alternative that gets to a very similar result and benefits everyone in the village.
So what you're saying is that rather than getting it assessed, and then making a counter order or not,
you stand alone.
Yeah, you'll give us a donation in exchange for your ability to. We'll give you the opportunity to landscape it without selling it.
For your permission for me to spend my money to beautify that strip of property.
Right. All right. Well, I'm for that.
I can do that from a tax perspective because I'm not getting anything really of value. I'm getting to spend my money.
It could be taxable property, which would benefit. Residents
in that scenario, I don't get any.
Right? No. If we sold it, it would bring in, it would have value. Right now, the village owning it has no value. If you owned it, it would bring in property tax. But I understand what you're saying. I like the idea. What are the, we can discuss this after we close the hearing. We'll discuss it in public.
You should consider my offer on the donation. On the Zoom equipment.
Well, part of the future discussion will be a negotiation of the price that you might donate.
Yeah. It's a donation.
So, how do the other board members feel about that?
Wait, Mayor, Mr. Madden got his chance to talk another 2-3 minutes. I'd like to talk for one. I think that's a very sensible compromise. My concern was that village assets were turned over to a private individual at below market prices. If a price is set at $50,000, $100,000 in a public auction, a lot more tax will be brought in, Mr. Mayor. So your argument's a little moot there. But Mr. Madden is right. If he wants to maintain the status quo, status quo allows people who walk around the lake to go and gaze in the lake once in a while, which they do right now. If he is willing to maintain the status quo and pay a donation to the village to buy Zoom equipment, I'd be happy to match his donation.
Okay. Just to be clear, we have not accepted $15,000 offer. We have yet to assess the property. There is no bid. We haven't opened any bidding. We haven't accepted any bids. We haven't opened the project for bidding. All we're doing tonight is discontinuing that portion of the road. And what Mr. Madden is saying is that he's willing to do an alternative where we don't sell it, give him the legal authority to landscape it.
He said, don't discontinue it.
Accept a donation. The difference between what he's talking about, a donation goes for a specific thing, and we won't be able to, after that donation comes in, we won't be able to charge, we won't be getting any gain from the property tax on that piece.
Mayor, he said he's going to keep the status quo. He wishes to keep the status quo, which means no discontinuance of the road.
That's correct.
All right.
That's correct. Yes, that's what
So
he
this
offered.
issue is moot here and now, and I will be willing to match Mr. Madden's donation to the village just to show him there's no hard feelings between myself and Mr. Madden.
Oh, I'm glad we came to a consensus. This is a terrific thing. Let me just go around to the other board members and see how they feel about it. Anyone care to make a comment from the board? Trustee Gluck.
Sure. I'll defer to council on this, but I think where we are now in the middle of a public hearing on discontinuance. So if we are going to be discussing something other than discontinuance, I think we should move on from this and open the regular meeting and maybe leave the public hearing open because who knows where we will wind up down the road.
Agreed. Yes, I think that right, exactly. I said we would discuss it after we close the hearing. You're 100% correct. Trustee Casker, McHugh, or Shaw, do you have any comments?
I'm sorry, Trustee Shaw, you're muted.
No, she's not.
Oh, she's not? Oh, sorry.
Sorry, David,
Yes, sir.
I'll say thank both Sean and Claudio for their overture with regard to the Zoom equipment. I personally was not in favor of discontinuing this road, and I think this is a far better solution and one that had been brought up in July board meeting. So I think this is a win-win for all parties and moves the needle and reduces the temperature level collectively, which I think is a good thing.
Great point. Trustees Casker or Shaw, any comment? Okay. So I move, unless anyone else has a comment from the audience.
Yes, I guess if we are commenting on that during this period, I do have a comment. I think I'd just like to discuss with council in executive session, any issues with regard to there being a donation in exchange for.
Agreed. Yeah, I think what we're going to do is we'll obviously end the public hearing and move on. We don't have to do the.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
This is Chris Hansen. Can I make one comment before the public hearing is over? Just in a prior administration, Claudio discontinued about 2 miles of roads that were obviously used by the public. One was Brook Road, which is runs, it's interesting, it runs the border of Tuxedo, the village and the town. That's a sort of very valuable piece of property for the village. He discontinued those and then sold it to a resident. And then also, that was two properties. One was sold, the second one, he gave for free an option to a resident to possibly buy it in the future. I don't think the residents exercise that option because that way the resident retains the ability to have the village plow and service the road if he builds a property on it. And the other two pieces of property were very similar to this one in the sense that they were surrounded by two properties. One was owned by this resident who purchased the roads and the other one was not. In this case, Mr. Madden has the properties on both sides, which is quite unique. So this is there is precedent that was set most recently by Claudio to discontinue paper roads in the village. Paper roads that are probably, 10 or 100 times, 40 times as big as this one. So just as things go forward, let's keep that in mind in terms of the fact that this.
Thank you, Chris. Now, Claudio, I'll ask you directly. Did you set that out on a bid?
First of all, we opened it up to bidding, and Mr. Bruno, who Chris Hansen alluded to, was the high bidder at either $400,000 or $450,000 or $475,000, which was a lot of money.
It was $24,000.
It included a gift to the village, Mr. Hansen. If you look at the overall monies gotten from Mr. Bruno, it was $475,000. And we opened it up to bidding and nobody came in at a higher level. Trustee McHugh was on the board at the time. He can also remember the facts. But Mr. Bruno contributed either $450,000, $475,000 to the village.
Okay,
it wasn't, Mr. Hansen, it wasn't $15,000.
No, it was $24,000.
No, it was not.
Yes,
No.
it was. The $400,000 was totally separate.
No, it was part of the same package.
Okay, let me ask a question. Was the $400,000 then?
It was $475,000.
Is that property assessed by you?
It did not have lakefront view. We put it up to public. We opened it up to public.
Claudio, simple
Mr.
question.
Hansen, this is.
No, simple question. Is that property assessed at $475,000?
That we opened it up to open bidding, and the property found its fair value at $475,000.
Okay,
a few other people actually came in, and I remember one other person came in and wanted to offer a little bit more, but then never came up with a formal offer. Mr. McHugh, maybe you remember better.
So Chris, I'll answer your question since it seems nobody wants to. I believe that the notional value on the road, you are correct. Claudio is correct with regard to the donation amount. It should be noted that it was the board, not Claudio, that made the decision at the time. That would be Claudio, I think it was John Moon and Mary Jo Ginchard at the time all voted for it. I believe Trustee Gluck and I were opposed to it. And the bidder that came in with a higher bid, which was not allowed, was Marguerite and John Hennessy's, who offered $500,000 for the land with the proviso that it couldn't be touched and it would be given evergreen to the community. So that's the facts as I recall them, which I think is what you're after.
So, Trustee McHugh, was there a sealed bid where the Hennessy's and Bruno participated in?
No.
Okay. Any other comments?
I'd like to make one more comment, Mr.
Yes, sir.
And it goes to what kind of community we want to have and what kind of process we want to have. Recall that this process started in July. This is the third public meeting. We have spent money to do magnetic tracing, to trace the pipes, to produce formal stamped surveys. We've been at it for months and we've spent our time. And the alternative is fine. But this was clearly an 11th hour disinformation campaign. And for folks like us who have 3 properties in the village, have a track record over 15 years of investing in our properties to beautify them for the benefit of everybody, to go through that process and then have it scuttled at the 11th hour by bad faith disinformation about a piece of property that everyone keeps talking about. It can be bought. It's not a legal standalone lot. And I will leave it at that. But in an environment where our community should be inviting new residents who want to invest in their properties and make our community a more attractive place, this kind of process is not a good inducement. Because the board, this process, Claudio, has wasted an enormous amount of our time and a little bit of money. And it's annoying, and new residents are watching, and they're watching the bar process. And the more difficult we make it, the more we're going to drive people away to more inviting communities in Westchester and other places in the Hudson Valley.
Mr. Madden, thank you. I actually put a bid on this property about 3 years ago, if you remember correctly. I bid $100,000 for the whole road. So you knew very well. Excuse me.
Would have left my boathouse landlocked.
No, I would have given you an easement. I would have given you an easement.
No, there was no bid. There was no bid. You wrote a letter.
Mr. McFadden.
No, there was no bid.
Anyway, you know that I was interested, and
there was no bid. You did not submit a bid.
I'm sorry.
It was just a letter. You said you would like to spend
And
$100,000 on
listen, we came into a fine conclusion here. If Mr. Madden wants to pay a fair market value for this, he can still do that, but it's not going to be $15,000, and it's not going to be. I mean, this is just opening up for endless lawsuits. You know that. You know that, Mayor.
No, I don't know that.
Listen, we came to a nice conclusion, Mayor McFadden. Let's leave it at that.
All right,
All right, Mr. Madden, whom I truly respect, will donate to the village. I will match his donation for Zoom equipment. Mr. Madden can beautify the place to his liking. The road is not discontinued as a road or as village property.
Thank you for your opinion and recommendation. Okay, so anyone else? All right, so there's no point in doing the secret. There is no point in doing the resolution to discontinue the road. So I move to close the public hearing and enter the regular meeting. May I have a second?
Second.
Discussion,
All in
please.
favor? Yes, sir.
Discussion. So if there is any, if there's any possibility that the board may think and may want to have some further discussion on discontinuing the road, which may.
You want to leave it open?
My suggestion would be that we leave the public hearing open. Otherwise, we will be foreclosed, I believe, and Brian or John, please correct me if I'm wrong. We will be foreclosed from hearing any further discussion on closure of the or of the discontinued.
Well, I would think, Trustee Gluck, that this hearing was called specifically for a discontinuance and for secret. And at this point in time, it doesn't look like we're going to do that. We're actually not doing that. And
Wait a second. Wait a second. So we're having a discussion right now, but the public hearing's still open. Can't we just close the public hearing and then discuss what we're supposed to do?
yes,
Yes.
that's what I would like to do.
You have the option to close the public hearing or continue it. If the board wants to continue it another date, I just suggest that the board state the date and time on the record today in the motion. But if you close it, the board can still discuss after the public hearing is closed. You're just not soliciting public comment.
Right. And 90% of this meeting did not, or this public comments did not actually talk about the resolution that we're supposed to discuss after this.
No, we're not.
Things are supposed to happen after, before we were given an opportunity to make a decision on this.
Correct.
Continuing the road. So I prefer to close the hearing and then have a discussion.
That's correct. That's what I intend to do. Who's in favor of closing the public hearing? Can I have a second? Okay.
Second, and I.
Paul,
I'm sorry, who seconded the motion?
Chris seconded, and
Thank you.
I affirm.
Trustee Gluck, would you like to cast your vote?
Sure, I would be, I would be in favor of leaving the public hearing open so that we are not foreclosed from hearing any further public comments on this issue. So
Well, can't we call another public hearing if we want to?
you can, but you have to comply with the notice requirements and all that other stuff.
That's okay.
All right.
It's a different topic, I think. But okay, so the hearing's closed with my vote, Alan's vote, and Chris's vote. Tinka didn't vote. Tinka, do you want to vote?
Yeah, I'm okay with closing it.
Okay. And Paul, you're a no?
Yeah, I'll go along.
Okay. All right, unanimous. All right, so let's discuss, thank you everybody for your comments. Let's discuss the latest proposition from Mr. Madden, which would be an alternative that would get him what he wants and in turn give us a monetary donation. And I think that's
Look,
Yeah, Dave, sorry, Chris, I'll let you speak and then I'll.
yeah.
My
Go
Let me just
ahead.
finish. Let me just
Go.
finish.
Go.
Thank you. So my feeling about this, and I'll go around the horn, is that we should end the discussion and continue the discussion before the next meeting and then determine how to deal with it. That's my view, but let's go around the horn.
Sorry. My only comment is, I believe we just closed the public hearing with regard to the discontinuance of road. I believe
Correct.
we need to open the regular meeting and then have this discussion. That would be my only point.
Okay. Why? I mean, technically, John, is that something we should do?
Yeah, I guess it's a matter of form. So you might as well just make a motion to open the regular hearing and then, or
Okay.
regular public meeting.
Thank you, Trustee McHugh, for that idea, and John. Okay, so I would like to make a motion to enter the public to the regular meeting. May I have a second?
Second.
I'm sorry,
all in favor?
I missed it again. Who was the
McHugh.
second?
McHugh.
McHugh. Thank you very much.
Okay, so let's go around for a vote. Trustee Tasker,
We're voting to open the public hearing?
correct. No, we're opening to open the public meeting.
Plug meeting, I'm sorry. Yes. Open the public meeting. Aye.
Trustee McHugh,
Aye.
Trustee Gluck,
Aye.
Trustee Shaw.
Aye.
Okay, very good. So the meeting's open. And we are going to, I'll go into the mayor's comments. First of all, I want to say welcome to everybody. I'm going to send some kudos to our employees. Debbie has been training Elizabeth, and that takes a lot of time and energy. And I'm impressed because both people, while Elizabeth is learning quite a bit, Debbie's been able to keep up with her daily responsibilities. And it's very impressive, and I want to thank them. Elizabeth is demonstrating a real can-do attitude. I think she's going to be a real asset. Of course, it's always difficult to replace someone that's been here for 25 years, Debbie. But so far, things are going well, and I just wanted to mention that to everybody. Also, John Ledwith represented the village this year at the SCAR hearings related to people taking their tax grievance to Goshen. And he did an exceptional job, as he always does with the SCAR hearings. And I wanted to thank him specifically for that. And also, I wanted to thank Jeff. We had this very serious water main leak on Tower Hill Road, Tower Hill and Tuxedo Road. It was very inconvenient, obviously, for a period of days. But he and his crew worked around the clock to investigate it and fix it. And then Jeff played a really hands-on role with the Orange County Health Department in allowing us to stop boiling the water and to drink the potable water like we normally would. It was a 2-day process, and he was on top of that. So I want to thank him for that. And the chief, I would like to thank, we had this discussion at the last meeting about Halloween and concerned about following the CDC guidelines and state guidelines. Before Halloween, the chief had a real good handle on that, shared that with his officers, and did a really good job making sure everybody that was out enjoying themselves participated in the CDC regulations, and I wanted to thank him for that. Now, we have posted the reports online, and we are going to discuss those. I'll go through them to see if anybody from the public or the trustees have any comments or questions. The first is the DPW report. Does anybody in the public or trustees have any questions about that? Let's move to the police report. Do a trustee or member of the public have any questions about that? Water synopsis report.
Yeah, I had a question on it because, and I wonder how the village handles, because it seems like we have a fair amount of outstanding balance. What does the village do with that? And at what point, I mean, how do we collect that? If it's over 6 months or a year, because it's not insignificant, the amount.
Trustee McHugh, you've been very involved in that. Would you like to comment?
Certainly. With regard to the village, we don't worry about it because we can collect on the taxes and we just put it on the tax roll. So that's clean and simple with regard to that. With regard to the town, there's 5 accounts which make up the bulk of the arrears that you see in the report. We send certified letters with regard to that. We have been pretty dogged with regard to reducing our receivable exposure. We offer people a payment plans with regard to soften the burden in light of what's going on in the world right now, and try to work with people, first and foremost, to recognize the liability, and then secondly, and probably more importantly, to work out an acceptable receivable payment plan that works for the village and for the homeowner. So that's the bottom line. As a board, Denise has latitude up to $75 to negotiate with a homeowner. Over and above that, it has to be presented to the board, and the board has a line vote on whether or not they want to accept a receivable plan and what they deem acceptable.
Did they follow the plans once you set up the payment plans?
Our success ratio has to date been 100%. So the answer is yes. And the lever we have is it's 40% per annum penalty on your water bill. So waiving that and getting somebody to recognize the receivable with the knowledge that if they don't pay, that 40% per annum will come back on their bill is a surprisingly effective tool to get people to manage that exposure.
So you feel the process is working, Trustee McHugh?
From where we started over to where we are now, it's been a complete success, and kudos to Denise for following through on that, and certified letters, and being a proactive approach has been very, very successful today.
Thank you. Trustee Shaw, do you have any other comments?
No.
Okay, great. Thank you both. I'm going to open the public comment period, and it's to focus on matters in the regular meeting, new business and old business that's been identified on the agenda. So the public hearing, the public comments are open. Does anyone have a question or a comment? I'll give it a few minutes.
Hey, Mayor, it's Enrique Corridor here, not Noel Guapo.
I'm sorry, I didn't quite catch your name. I'm sorry.
Enrique Corridor. Yeah,
how do you spell the last name, please?
Corredor.
Thank you so much.
No problem, Elizabeth. I'm not El Guapo, by the way. Mayor, am I allowed to comment on the prior issue that we just closed before the sub meeting, or is that come at a later time?
I'll ask the board. I'm inclined to do it if it's short. And how about the other trustees?
The resolution we're still going to discuss on the agenda, so for some reason he can't.
Perfect. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, trustees. I was trying to comment earlier, but I guess I was on mute, so no one could hear me. I think the point that Sean Madden made about having a park where families can better their property, it's so important. You know, we're trying to attract young families to the park, allow them to make their properties better. It just seems like Claudia's attempts here were just simply to obstruct what the Mann family wants to do. I mean, the concept that small sliver of land can be turned into a park is pretty outrageous if anyone's seen that piece of property. Super thin, it's 15 feet wide. You can barely put a bench on that, and it's a super steep incline. So I mean, that's pretty disingenuous. And last night there was an email that said that there was gonna be a public auction today on that land where people should get band together and put proposals together to bid on that land. And then today we were told that was actually not happening, that the mayor's office obstructed that. That's also disingenuous. Claudio, I've gotten to know you pretty well. You know, I see your family walk by our house all the time. Beautiful family. I don't understand why everything has to be so negative here. You know, we want to attract families to make this part prettier. And it seems like right now, you know, you're trying to obstruct what the Madden family wants to do. It seems a little disingenuous, and I don't like feeling this way, you know, in our community. You know, we want to, I would love for you and Sean to get together and come to an agreement and stop this obstruction.
I appreciate that, Mr. Guapo. My feelings, my desire is not to obstruct the Madden family. I like the Madden family. I go to church with Sean Madden's mom-in-law. My desires are to protect the rest of the residents so that the village obtains a proper and fair price for that piece of property. Mr. Madden can bid in the auction process. Nobody is preventing him from bidding in the auction process. My desire is not to give that piece of property away, take it off of the books of the residents and put it into the hands of somebody at a below market value. That's all, Mr. Guapo.
That would never happen because we haven't.
I would like your family
property.
also. They're very nice, Mr. Guapo. They're very nice family.
Assess the property. There's no, the comment that it's below market value is just completely irrelevant at this point in time. Okay, thank you both of you. Anyone have any comments on the agenda that's going to follow? Okay, thank you. Closed. We have a discussion on the agenda. We have gone out and asked 3 vendors to bid on the design and installation of a remote meeting product in the Village Hall. It would be used by the Board of Trustees, the bar, the planning board, the BZA, and the court, if the court would like to do that. And, you know, basically one thing that we've learned during this COVID matter is the benefit of using Zoom in meetings. For example, tonight, I think we have we'll have over 80 people right now. And if you compare that to what we normally have in our meetings, you know, it's significantly larger. It's so much more convenient, but we intend to install this, and it would be a combination of a live meeting when we're able to do that again, and being able to use a remote meeting product. So we contacted 3 vendors, Zoom, BlueJeans, and WebEx. And WebEx is the only one that didn't respond. So we have information from Zoom in terms of quotes and from BlueJeans. And John Ledwith, are you on?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, hi, John. So would you like to add a little more granularity to the bid process, not the bid process, the quote process, and what we've learned?
Yes, I was most specifically involved with the Zoom company, and we did speak with them in depth on 2 separate occasions. A lot of it came down to what type of technology we wanted to use, and with that improved technology, how much it would cost. There appeared to be a couple different options regarding speakers and microphones that could reduce the cost considerably. I went over those options on a conference call with Paul Gluck and Alan McHugh last week. And we have received, I think, 3 different prices from Zoom, depending upon the level of technology that we'd like to use.
Okay, great. And I understand that you got, since you and I met with Zoom, I think when you were on the call with Trustee McHugh and Gluck, they gave you a breakdown of 3 different types of installations. The one they quoted us was the high end.
Yes.
And since then, they've given us 2 alternatives. Can you describe those?
Yes, those 2 alternatives had various changes in either the number of speakers and the number of computer screens. And I believe the quote that we had received, which was the top of the line install, was approximately $30,000. And I believe the 2 other options that we were given, which I'm sorry I don't have in front of me, but I think they were in the neighborhood of $10,000 to $12,000, I believe.
Thank you. And Trustee McHugh and Gluck, do you have anything you'd like to add based on your meeting with Zoom?
Sorry, I think John has accurately depicted, a good summary. What we had done is try to create a slightly more flexible system, given the size of the room or the constraints of the size of the room, given how narrow it is. I believe, John, it's what you said, 16 by 30. So trying to get the best setup from an audio-visual perspective was problematic. And we think we came around with a workaround, which was more the school classroom design, which was, I think, the $13,000 or $14,000 proposal that Zoom resubmitted.
Yeah, I looked at that. I think that's a good alternative to the one that they'd spec'd us first. Trustee Gluck, do you want to add anything?
So I think as a bit further we can go down on this path in terms of fine tuning their proposal, because with high-end $30,000 proposal, there was substantial cost savings by getting the equipment not through Zoom, but through our New Windsor, our
yes.
IT vendor. And presumably the same thing would be true in their $15,000.
Yeah, absolutely. For those that don't know, we contracted through an agreement, a municipal sharing agreement with a group in New Windsor, and they have been giving us great discounts because they get the government price. So as Trustee Gluck says, we will be able to shave some of the costs off in terms of the equipment. I will say that in lieu of this information from the public hearing, that we table this, because if there is an offer for a donation, and if we end up accepting a donation, that would save us the idea that, you know, we would have to take this out of the general unallocated funds, for example, because it wasn't budgeted in the last budget. What's your view on tabling it, gang?
I'd be in favor of that. Maybe.
Yeah, I would be too. For one, I think we need to drill down a little bit more, and obviously we need some clarity from our legal counsel with regard to, if we go down the path of renting or leasing or whatever we do with regard to the piece of land abutting the Maddens,
right.
Dotting the I's with regard to what the best practice that works for the Maddens and for the village. I would suggest we need to defer that, and then we can come up by that time next trustee meeting, have a optimal solution with regard to what we want.
Right, terrific. Okay, before we move on to the next item, Trustee Kasker, do you have any comments or observations you want to make about the secret resolution as well as the discontinuance resolution?
I mean, we have in the agenda resolution to discontinue, and we're going to talk about that now.
Well, I think my view is that essentially the offer to purchase
We're not talking
is
about
no
the
longer
offer. We're not talking about the offer to purchase. We're talking about discontinuing the road.
right. And I think that if
Continue it or not, it's still village property. So why can't we vote on the resolution to discontinue it or not discontinue it, and then talk about purchasing whenever that arises?
Well, I think purchasing is off the table at this point in time. So let me ask John, our attorney. John, I understand Trustee Casker's point. If, let's just jump ahead, if the village were not to discontinue any part of the road, but give him indeed the permission to landscape it for 99 years or whatever we would do, would we still need to do a secra or a discontinuance? Because all we would be saying is he can landscape a piece of village property.
May I
Yes.
suggest it's not a deed? You would give me a revocable license? That's all.
Thank you. John, what's your view? Should we go through the discontinuance process, or is it irrelevant at this point? In other words, if we don't discontinue the road, can we allow a resident to landscape it?
Well, so you asked a couple questions there. First, secra is only required when the board takes an action. So if the board, before it voted on whether to discontinue the road or not, it just has to follow through with the completed secra process. So if the board doesn't take an action, secra is then not, you don't have to finish the secra process. Okay. The public hearing is related to the public, the discontinuing the road, which the board is well aware of. Since that is closed, it can now vote. It doesn't have to vote today. If it wants to vote today, it can be put up to the board for a discussion and a vote on that resolution. You could also do it at the next meeting, even if you don't have the public hearing, because you've already fulfilled that legal requirement to have the public hearing in the first place. Okay. Before, if you do it at the next meeting, you can then you can finish that secret process then. It just has to be done before you take the vote on that resolution. All right. As for the landscaping question, yeah, you could grant somebody a license that's revocable at will based, in certain circumstances. There's certain requirements that need to be put into that license. Like you still need to have certain aspects of public use available and such, but you could grant the license to village.
Without doing the discontinuance.
Yeah, I believe so.
Mm-hmm. Okay, can I just point something out? We had one, am I correct? One person who objected very loudly to the discontinuance of this road, not counting trustees, but according to the public comments, with close to 80 people on. So we're gonna let one person dictate everything this board is doing? I don't think we want to live in a village like that either. That's my issue. So I would prefer that we table this and discuss it another time if that's what we need to do. But I don't think it's fair to Mr. Madden to delay this process, because regardless of whether we discontinue the public road or not, it's still village property. The whole discussion was about selling this village property, and that's not the resolution in front of this board. We got totally sidetracked.
Correct.
Totally sidetracked.
Right. No, correct. And I think what I'm referring to is that, and this is why I talked to John just to get this organized. Madden offered an alternative to purchasing the road, and that alternative would be landscaping it with the permission of the village and making a donation.
Mr. Mayor,
And if that's the case, I do not believe, if I understood John correctly, that we would need to do any secret work or any discontinuance work. Now, that said, if we decide to do it, we can do it at the next meeting. And I understand your concern about delay. I'll pose this to Sean Madden and see what his thoughts are.
well, look, I think Trustee Casker is right on the money. It's ridiculous the way this process has gone. This has been public for many, many months. And I'm not going to reiterate the comments I made earlier about the disincentives to good faith residents in good faith trying to improve their properties. There's been a false choice created by Claudio's disinformation. That false choice is that somehow some other party could buy this lot. He said it's apples to apples. It's not. The only alternative is the village holds this property as is, or it sells it to one of the two property owners who can absorb it into an existing code compliant lot. A 15 by 100 foot lot is not legal. And I want to be very clear about this. You will not see that lot sold to anybody else.
Mr. Madden, that is completely not true. The BZA, the Board Zoning of Appeals can sell village land as much or as little as possible to anyone. Well, there's another resident in the discussion, Mr. Casker. We created some form of peace, Mr. Casker, and you decided to stoke the fire. Why is that?
No. Look, this
Come on.
period.
Stop.
This is not a public comment period.
The BZA can do whatever they want. The
This is a
BZA.
meeting for the board. The board is meeting. The mayor asked a member of the public who's interested in this to comment. He did not call on you. The mayor gets to decide who gets to talk in the board's meeting.
This is a public board meeting, and my name was taken in vain again.
So what? Write a letter.
If I may finish, I'm a lawyer.
Comment period.
I've read the code. The notion that this piece of property is ever going to be owned by anybody else is fanciful. Before you even took action, we would sue the village. It's not legal.
All right, so, okay, I have an idea.
I finished.
And I would sue you too, so we can both sue.
Property on Tuxedo Lake. That's why our code doesn't allow for 15-foot lots.
The BZA can approve a small lot as big as a postage stamp. The BZA is allowed to do that under village law in the state of New York, and you know that, Mr. Madden.
We're talking about discontinuing a road. You guys are both outside what's on the agenda. Can we please just talk about discontinuing a public road? And if I can continue, out of the 80-some people on this call who could have participated in a public road, nobody talked about their public participation or use of that road in the entire time they've lived here. So I think it's clear that it serves no public use because the public hasn't used it in 50 years, 10 years, 5 years, I don't know, however long the longest person on this call has lived here. They haven't used it. Hence, it's a pretty easy decision in my mind to discontinue this for public use. And again, it doesn't change the fact the village still owns it. It's just a piece of paper on a map no longer calls it a road for 100 feet. We're making this wait.
Can you explain the benefit again of discontinuing the public road?
Pardon me?
Can you explain the benefit of discontinuing this road? Why is it that we want to do this? What is the benefit to the village to discontinue?
The benefit to the village was property tax and money to put into the coffers. That's what brought us here. What would happen next is that we would negotiate a price based on fair market value. The village isn't, really in a situation to, let's say it valued at 50 grand. We would go back to Sean and say its value is 50 grand, you're way under. Or it might be valued at 5,000, in which case Sean's like, okay, well, I made an offer, I'll stick with it. Or he could lower his offer. And then, so we're not even there yet. So the purpose of discontinuing the road is to open those opportunities to a resident, which is our philosophy here on all our boards. We want to be welcoming. We want to be accommodating, for a resident to say, hey, it'll really benefit. I bought these two properties. I'd love to landscape it. I just need this little strip of land. If the board outright said no, that wouldn't be neighborly. So that's
But at this point, when you said we're not going to sell it, you said the village is not going to sell it. So at this point, what is the benefit if we're not selling it? to discontinuing this road?
Because it gives us the ability to sell it. We can't sell it unless it's discontinued. That doesn't mean we have to, it doesn't mean we have to sell it, Rich. And it doesn't mean we have to accept any offer. We are not locked into any price. What's your concern?
Well, my concern is really less of a concern and more of a question. If we're doing it for this road so that we could potentially sell it, why would we not do it for all the equivalent paper roads so that we had the potential to sell those if it ever made sense? Why are we doing this now?
If you're, no, look, if you're, we have no intention of selling, discontinuing every road and selling property. We're not into real estate.
Mayor, I was trying to talk.
But if a resident made us an offer on a paper road, then we would consider it. But again, let us move on. We appreciate it, Rich, and it's noted.
Paul's trying to talk.
My point exactly. So we had a public hearing on the discontinuance of a road. The public hearing has closed. We can no longer, I believe, properly entertain comments from the public with respect to the discontinuance of a public road. The period for public comment on that is over from any member of the public. That's why I wanted to leave the public hearing open. But if we didn't, the public hearing is closed, and unless, you know, council could correct me on this, but I don't think we can properly entertain any further comments from the public with respect to the discontinuance of the road.
Right.
Yeah, at this
agree.
point, taking public comment is really up to the board. For the purposes of the public hearing, it won't be part of the record if your decision was ever challenged. That's just the consequence there. But at the end of the day, accepting public comment at this point is really a board decision. If it doesn't want to, it doesn't have to.
Right. Okay. All right. Thanks. So I'm sort of behind you, Trustee Casker, of what you're saying about actually discontinuing the road, and if that would allow us more flexibility to accept an offer without having to go and retrack our steps and do it at another meeting. But if we determine as well that we would take a donation and allow the landscaping of the road without us selling it, it wouldn't matter if we discontinued it, or would it, John?
I mean, it would matter, but you don't have to. But if I may suggest, before the board makes any decision what to do, whether you discontinue it or not discontinue the road, and you want to license it or something, just maybe get a proper meets and bounds description so you know exactly how big it is, what's there, and what exactly you are deciding to license. Or if after you discontinue it, if the board decides to license it at that point or sell it or something, I would suggest getting a proper survey and meets and bounds description for that purpose.
Which we anticipated, because there is no bill of sale or anything on the table of that nature.
That's
yes,
correct.
You're absolutely right. All right. So again, I'll just go back to my original exercise of just going through the regular meeting agenda at this point, and then not passing any resolutions on this matter,
Mayor?
and tabling it until further discussion.
Mayor, could I just interject for a second?
Yes, sir.
I was factually incorrect. I just pulled up the file. The Hennessy's made the offer on December 17th, 2015. It was $400,000. So Chris Henson was correct with regard to that. And the voting was, I was incorrect. It was not John Moon. It was Trustee or Deputy Mayor Claudio, the Mayor, Mary Jo Ginchard, and John Kilduff were the people who voted affirmatively for selling Brook Road. That's just a factual matter.
Thank you very much for clarifying that for the record.
Mr. Mayor.
Okay, I'll go around the horn one more time with the trustees. Sorry, Sean, we really can't take any more comments. I'll go around the horn with the trustees. Do we agree we will move on with the regular agenda?
Yes, please.
Yes.
Anyone else? Okay, we're gonna do that. All right. So we've gone through the discussion of Zoom, and we've tabled that for more information, more detail. And frankly, Trustee McHugh, there's no super rush, is there? Because I have no idea when we're going to be able to go back to in-person meetings. I hope to do an in-person meeting for here, but then the governor changed the rules of 10 maximum. So again, every time, you know, we try and do something like that, it just seems to get shot down. So, I mean, I can't predict, but it's not going to be in December, right? So we'll move on. We have a resolution approving the new procedure for confirming construction costs on building permit applications for discussion. Can I get a second, please?
Second.
All right, discussion. Would you like to present your idea, Trustee McHugh?
I guess the bottom line, and we discussed it the prior meeting, was we're having issues with regard to people's building applications being inaccurate, and the village engineer has been pointing them out at bar meetings where there's gross discrepancies between submitted design costs and actual design costs. Obviously, this affects us on a couple different levels. First and foremost, just on a revenue side on the building permit issue, but more fundamentally, it affects us in terms of what we can do with regard to assessed values on properties and on when we're defending the village at SCAR hearings and tax certiorari. So this is not to be trying to be overly onerous. It's trying to use best practices that other communities have used. Brian's firm has looked into this. The bar attorney also reviewed this, and the engineering firm for the bar also reviewed this, and this was the recommendation they put forward, which a lot of other communities in Orange County use. So that's kind of it in a eggshell.
Okay, so just for a little more clarity, when you're talking about putting down a cost of a project, you're referring to initially when there's a application for a building permit, correct? And the amount you put down is the projected construction cost. And what you're saying is that many times somebody that may have gotten an estimate for $1 million on a new home puts down $500 as what the cost of construction will be. And you're saying that that affects several things, our ability to assess the property and other matters. And so I just want to, I'm sort of explaining that for everybody. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I would say you're spot on, and maybe the best case in point is a house that's on Tuxedo Lake. There was a proposal to have it demolished and a new 5,500 square foot home put up on that. The topography of that house is it's relatively steep. The cost submitted on the building permit was $500,000. That's, the engineer flagged it, and it was brought up at a bar meeting. But so what we're trying to do is, it's formalize a process and make it more equitable, because it's an equity for every property owner in the park, because you want an equalization of all properties, and this is a way to move that towards that. So it's not trying to be overly onerous. And if people are doing a property improvement, or if you're doing addition, it's one thing. If you're replacing your windows or putting a new roof, that's maintenance. It's not going to affect your taxes per se. So it's just trying to get a greater degree of forthrightness and honesty on the applications for the reasons I articulated.
Thank you. So if somebody puts 500 as a cost, it's really $1 million. Not counting the tax assessment aspects of it, are there fees associated with that? So, the
Yes.
higher the amount, the more the fees with. Is there a bond or is there a deposit? What's the actual practical implication of somebody actually cutting their construction cost in half when they apply for the permit?
If John's still on, he's probably best equipped to give you the exact numbers, but you really have encapsulated it. It's, there's a fee structure, there's a bond, you have to post a bond when you're doing a new house. So there's different elements that, you've covered all the bases is basically.
Okay, so thank you very much. Let's go around to the trustees to see if they have any comments on this. Did I call that for a second yet? I'll do that later.
Yes.
I did,
You
okay.
seconded.
Thank you. So Trustee Shaw, do you have any comments?
I forget how many forms, but there were different forms that we got, right, for different projects that for the homeowner to fill out.
Oh, okay, yes, thank you. So Trustee McHugh, I think she's referring to the affidavits that you're proposing.
Correct, and John can probably better speak to that, but I believe it's the homeowner, the architect, and the builder. Correct, John?
That's
I
correct.
believe so, yes.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry,
Trustee Shaw.
one more question.
Oh, yes, do you have more to say?
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is for mostly like big projects, remodels, or new construction?
The answer to that is yes. For little projects like putting in a generator, this is not remotely applicable. I mean, we could put a minimum amount for this to be applicable if we want to go down that path. If you want to make it easier, or we could go, if it's but I think just putting it in universally would be beneficial, and would just move things along, and we'd have a better process. And this is really about having a more defined process, which takes some pressure off John Ledwith, because instead of him having to badger somebody to come up with the right numbers, now there's consequences for people not putting the correct numbers, an order of magnitude.
Trustee Casker, do you have any comments or questions?
So what are the consequences if they don't put the right numbers?
John, do you want to answer that?
Yeah, so it's an affidavit. So they're basically swearing under the penalties of perjury. So Class A misdemeanor, fine, possible jail time, things like that if the village wanted to, or in a practical sense, probably just void the application or something like that, revoke a building permit under the code, or which would effectively stall the project or something.
Okay. And then, so right now, say it's $1 million construction cost, the building permit is a percentage of that $1 million? Is that how we do that now?
I think so, up to a certain amount.
Correct.
Okay.
Chris, the building permit fees vary depending upon the project. We changed the fee structure a number of years ago because people were putting either large additions on their home or building new homes. And as Alan McHugh said before, they would put a number that would be, absurdly low. So we changed the fee structure so a new house is charged based upon the size of the home. It's not based upon the value. This way, to a certain extent, we really don't care if it's 500,000 or 900,000. Other projects, smaller projects, additions, landscaping, large landscaping improvements, they're all based upon the value of the project, and people can lowball it on the application, and obviously their fee would be lower than what might be practical.
Trustee Casker, you mentioned something to me, and I'll just run with it. Interrupt me if I'm not interpreting what you said correctly. If, first of all, if it's very difficult to fix a price in the beginning when you're just getting a permit, you may not have done the design, you have an idea, you haven't necessarily spec'd all the materials, they could change, engineering can change. So the concern was, and this is just a practical thing, the concern is that if I put down on an affidavit, it's $1 million, but it turns out to be $1.4 million, what happens?
So the beauty of this is if you're scoping out your project and you go before the bar and you say, let's just, for devil's advocate, let's say you think it's a $500,000 project, then the scope of what you want to do changes and the cost does. It's not till completion that you're signing the affidavit. So you're basically going, you know what? It started as the project being A, it's morphed into A plus B, and the costs have gone up by some amount. When you finally sign your affidavit of completion, that's when you're going, you know what? The number wasn't really 500, it was 700, for example, say. So you're not being penalized for presenting initially in front of the bar. This is a catch-up mechanism to better capture and reflect what the homeowner has done on their property.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Gluck, do you have any comments or observations?
No. Thank you.
Okay. I guess one of my concerns is it might be a turnoff, and I'm sort of with everybody on this idea that we have a lot of new people coming in that want to do something, make improvements, and that seems to be a bit of a barrier. But you mentioned, Trustee McHugh, that other municipalities do it?
The answer to that is yes. The suggestion on how to best manage this was presented by the village engineer. The village or the bar legal attorney, which is also with John O'Brien's firm, had reviewed it and concurred that is what a lot of other communities use. And then obviously Brian and John have reviewed it and made some edits and tightened the language and everything. So, I mean, John, I shouldn't speak for you. Would you concur with that?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, so I'm kind of neutral on it. I would like to do some of the detailing of it first. You mentioned some things, different scenarios. Maybe we need to put in writing a memo explaining this. And when we do that process, we might learn new things. But let me see how everyone else feels. Trustee Kasker, what's your view?
So I'd actually prefer to see what the other options are. Some of my concerns are it's adding bureaucracy to an already easy process. For some projects, they might not have an architect or a builder. If you do it yourself, maybe you have those skills. I don't know all the uses for this. Maybe I'm just not familiar with all the details. And, I don't understand what the construction cost, how that applies to the tax assessment. Because obviously things might cost a hell of a lot more to build and the market would dictate on resale or for taxes. So maybe that's just, me not being familiar with all those processes. So I think I just need to hear a little bit more, but I'm concerned it kind of sounds like a tax, like, hey, we're going to charge you based on how much this costs. I'm not comfortable because I just don't think I know enough.
Trustee Gluck, how are you feeling about this?
Sure. Well, I think from what I'm hearing tonight, I'm a little sensitive to maybe putting in, a floor under which, so these don't impact sort of low end, inexpensive projects. But I'm generally in favor. To answer Trustee Kasker's question on where it fits in the assessment process, what happens often during the assessment review is that you get into you review building permits for the year to see what has been added to a home, in particular by way of a building permit. And if your building permit has an absurdly low number, it doesn't mean that you increase the assessment by the amount of costs that go into that project. But if your assessment your building permit does have an absurdly low number, it does limit your ability to increase the assessment to a level that's consistent with the fair market value of that, of that particular project. So to that end, it's important to try and get the numbers right and have them, be accurate.
Okay.
I'm inclined to view this process favorably with maybe, a few tweaks.
Alan, what do you think about tweaking it a little bit, or?
Yeah, I mean, I have absolutely no problem tweaking it, depending on what people want tweaked. But this is trying to equalize everything. It's not, I don't look at it as a tax. I mean, is it a tax on the homeowner? What we're trying to do is make our tax roll fair and equitable, and taking into account what people are doing to the properties. I mean, if you're putting on a new roof, you can put $35,000, $50,000. It doesn't make one iota of a difference with regard to your tax assessment, because that's a home, that's just maintenance. So, things like that you're not going to be penalized for doing that. It's when you're doing a massive extension or you're building a new house, it's trying to get to a fair market value. But, I think we can look at Villa Ina, and maybe we should have a discussion offline with regard to Villa Ina and how we looked at how that was taxed and what an appropriate tax was versus their true construction costs, where they to be honest, they were more than truthful. Their construction costs on the building permit, I think John can confirm it, was $11 million. So, but they're not being taxed at $11 million.
Right.
But maybe this is better to have a discussion offline to give you more the nuances of how it's been done, and then it might give you some comfort, and it might result in some tweaks that makes everybody more comfortable. It's fine by me.
All right, Trustee
David,
Shaw.
hi. It's Joanne Hanson, the chair of the planning board. I attended this evening in regards to this, and I would say that it has been an issue over the past, and I would recommend the proposal that Mr. McHugh has put forward.
Terrific. So would you like to help us do some of the tweaking between now and the next meeting?
Sure, I'm happy to look at it.
That'd be terrific. Are we in agreement, board members, that we'll table it, and with the purpose of trying to get something together, because we sort of favor this, and if it's going to be helpful with taxes and tax assessments, that's a real benefit. And if the number is put in incorrectly and it's lower, if that causes us a problem and forces us to have to do extra work to find out the actual cost, there's another reason to do it. So I suggest we table this and discuss it before the next meeting. What do you feel?
For that, and I'm happy if John Ludwith is the expert on this to make some time, if he's available, to get started on it.
Trustee Gluck, McHugh, and Shaw?
Yep, I'm okay with that.
Okay, table. All right. Thank you very much. All right, so we are at a point now. Resolution approving the mayor to sign the W&S proposal to respond to the OCDOH letter. That's Orange County Department of Health. Can I have a second?
Second.
All right, what would you guys like to discuss? Are we good?
Yeah, Trustee Gluck had a question, I think, during the emails about why this one versus the other one, the WHE.
Mm-hmm. You mean the other engineer that bid?
Right.
Okay, so from where I sit, in reading those two, one's more comprehensive, so they're not apples and apples. And what I've done is, in speaking with the DEC representative, I sent him the agreement from the proposal from W&S, and he felt, he's an engineer, he felt it was comprehensive and fair. He's not making a recommendation, but I think there's a lot in it that would be beneficial to us over the long term. And so I would recommend that we go for the full boat on that, the 22K. But that's just my view. And if the board's interested in anything in addition to that, we could pursue it. The last meeting, we agreed that John Ledwith would go back and try and get these to apples and apples. John, I don't know, have you had a chance to do that?
I did, but I haven't received the complete answers from Weston and from McGoey, Hauser, and Ansel. And because of the lack of clarity, I was concerned, and I think the board agreed with me. We wanted to make sure that their proposal completely answered the questions that were before us. With the Department of Health, we didn't want to find out 2 months from now that now McGoey, Hauser, and Ansel has to do another report. You know, it's going to cost us another $5,000. And once again, that goes back to how you started the conversation, that the proposals really were not apples to apples, and we didn't have a lot of assurance in the quote that McGoey, Hauser, and Ansel provided us.
Right. So both proposals, based on what John said, all the trustees have had both proposals to review. Do you have any comments on those two proposals, any board member?
Yeah, I mean, I've got a couple of comments. I know you said you've spoken to the Orange County Department of Health. What extension did they give us, and did they give it to us formally?
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, the formal extension was after the conversation, he asked me to send a follow-up email with all those points, which I did, and I copied everybody.
No, sorry, I mean, we were given 120 days to respond.
Right. I asked for an extension on that.
Right, and what's the extension to?
He agreed, and he told me to write up a summary of the conversation where he gave us the extension. There was no time limit on it. It's open-ended. He's willing to work with us. He did contact me a couple of days ago and wanted to know where we stood on assigning the contract. So this is not something that we can, just use and abuse. This has to be realistic. And so I will call him tomorrow and ask him. I mentioned if we did or didn't, and if we have to push it, we will. But he's been very, from COVID on down, he explained this as it's new, complicated, no one knows how to respond to it. And because of the fact that we had an election and that we've had COVID and this and that, he was happy to give us an extension. So there's no formal letter other than what he asked me to do, which was formal, which was contact him and reiterate everything we said. And I did distribute that email, but there's no letter saying, here's your new time frame. So, I'm satisfied with that. That's common.
All right. So
yeah.
I guess my concerns are, I still see, I'm still a bit perplexed why McGoey Hauser is ignoring our requests. And, we're talking about the variances, double, and why our lead engineer is refusing to follow up and give us answers is in itself troubling. That's one.
I have no idea about that. I didn't know. John's asking for, you asked him for follow-up information?
Yes, I did. I don't have an exact date, but shortly after we spoke about this last, I sent another email to McGoey Hauser for clarity, and I don't recall receiving a response.
I guess we could look at it a couple ways. One would be they're not interested. And the other is we're not communicating with them properly, or they're too busy.
I mean, there's a host of issues there, which I agree. The other thing I'm worried about, and we received from Steve Newhouse, Department of Health, with regard to new monitoring requirements on September 11th. And I thought that was going to be rolled into this proposal too, because we have to do all new testing at the water plant effective February 2021. And I certainly believe we need good policies and procedures put in place so that we collectively have comfort that our water department is doing the correct testing. And I believe that was meant to be in this proposal too, and I haven't seen anything with regard to that.
That's why I like the WS proposal. It's very comprehensive. Did you feel that way too?
My problem is neither McGooey, Hauser, nor West and Sampson have even opined on this. That's my concern.
I don't know what you mean.
There's a new water monitoring requirements which are being mandated by the Orange County Department of Health that are effective February 2021. And this was, I was under the belief that this was going to be rolled into the proposals both for McGooey, Hauser, and Weston and Sampson. With regard to quality of work, I actually agree with you. I think Weston and Sampson's proposals far more thorough, gives us far greater comfort, and it's our water supply. So I would err on the side of over caution and make sure that everything's moving forward in the correct. I would just like this new requirements embedded in this proposal, and maybe we go back to them saying, look, you're considerably more than your competitor, but we task you with handling this too in order to make sure we get this thing resolved and up to speed for our water plant operators. Maybe that's the solution.
So just to clarify, what is it you're looking for them to roll into the proposal? Is this a separate request? This is
a separate request that came from Department of Health. Yeah.
For the
water. Yeah.
Yeah, but for the basins?
Not for the basins. It's sampling techniques on our water. This is separate from the original Department of Health letter.
Separate from the original 15 questions or whatever it was?
Yes.
Okay. And you'd like, okay, so we could, all right, that works for me. I mean, John, do you think that's the appropriate thing to do, is go back for a new price, having rolled in this other issue?
I don't see, this is a very, opportune time to do that. So I don't see any reason why we shouldn't.
Okay. So if we have to call a special meeting because we have to make a decision before the next board meeting, I'll feel out our contact at the DEC and I'll share that information with you. But otherwise, it sounds like we want to table this. Before I do, trustees Casker, Gluck, and Shaw, do you have any input you want to share?
Sounds to me.
Sorry, Mayor, could I make a proposal?
Yes, sir.
I mean, I'd be more comfortable with us approving the Weston and Sampson with a not to exceed. That way, when you go back to the Orange County Department of Health, you can go, look, we've approved this, we're moving forward with this. We've already used up 90 of 120 days. The scope of work on this is relatively large. So we need to get this done and our sampling done. So at least you're giving him something concrete to make him recognize and realize that we're moving the needle. So I'd be more inclined to do a not to exceed, let John Ledwith go back to Weston and Sampson, see if they'll incorporate the additional water monitoring requirements and do it that way. That would be my personal preference, but maybe that's just me.
No, I mean, that makes sense. So should we pass a resolution tonight allowing me to sign it under those conditions? Or I still think we would have to get back together.
Yeah, how do you figure out the not to exceed? I mean, how do?
Yeah.
Oh, but what I'm proposing is we've already got a dollar amount that they've given us, right?
Yeah, 22 something.
22K. And all I'm saying is we're going to add an additional line item that we want them to do within that 22K. And we basically are going to push back and go, look, we found your fee structure to be considerably higher than somebody else, but we're suitably inclined to move forward with you. But we want you to do this.
I see. You want to wrap it. You want to take the 22 and say,
I want to bundle it.
Keep the price.
I'm
at
a
22.
cheap Scott.
Yeah, no, I understand. I understand what you're trying to do. All right. Well, I think that then we need to table this because that has to be a discussion and they may or may not agree to it. What do you think, Trustee Casker?
Well, I think we have a defined requirement from the Department of Health, and we have a solution that meets that specific need. And that I think we should move forward with it and still try to do what Trustee McHugh is suggesting. But if anything, at least we're moving down the road to meet this requirement. I mean, I don't think we want to play around with the Department of Health.
Yeah. So you'd favor passing the resolution and then worrying about it later. Bring about the additional, bring it in just to show that we're making progress and to potentially lock these guys up.
Yeah, and still attempt to do what Trustee McHugh is suggesting. And we can come back and talk about it if they say no way.
Mm-hmm.
But if they say okay, then we're ahead of the game.
What do you think about that, Trustee Shaw?
Okay, let's move ahead.
Trustee Glock?
I don't know that you can approve this contract without that element in it tonight, and then.
Yeah, no, we wouldn't be doing that. We would just be passing the existing one, and then we would add on to that and still be able to discuss the price.
Right. I think if we authorize this contract tonight without that additional requirement in it for the 22.4, I don't know that we could really go to Weston and Sampson and say, we'll do what you, we'll take your, we'll approve your proposal if you add on this other element for the 22.4. I think.
Yeah, no, I think that, I don't see that as how I would negotiate it. So I'm not worried about that. I tend to think we should pass this and then deal with the other element later so that, as Trustee Casker says, we can send this over, we can contact the DEC, say, hey, we're working on it. And I'll tell them specifically, there are other things that we want to incorporate. So this may not be the last, but that we're making progress. That's always a good thing to do with the DEC. Trustee McHugh.
How about a hybrid solution? Given they've defined their tasks as comments for items 1 and 3, why don't we approve that, which is 15,900? Then we've got the ball rolling, and we've defined it. And then that way you've got something concrete to tell the health department, and then we can negotiate the response to comments 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, in addition to the September 11th, 2020 letter with regard to additional monitoring requirements. And we can add that on at the next Board of Trustee meeting. That way we're moving things along. We've defined that, items 1 and 3 are the most important to the health department. We'll deal with them. That way he knows we're moving forward with regard to that. Then we can add the additional items on. Hopefully we can negotiate them within.
Yeah, we would still have the negotiating power. Yep. I like that. How does everyone else feel?
I like it.
Yeah, I like it. All right, so we need to modify the resolution as it stands now. Let me grab that because the one I proposed is different. I'm looking it up. Okay, the actual resolution itself reads that the Board of Trustees authorize the mayor to sign the Weston Sampson proposal dated 10/16/2020 in the amount of $22,400 for their services to assist in the village in responding to the OCDOH comment letter of 9/8/2020, in which the Orange County Department of Health noted deficiencies resulting from their inspection conducted at the village water treatment plant, with the expense allocated to the water fund budget line item 1440. Engineering. So I guess in part of the proposed 10/16/2020, and then change the amount. I'll go to John on that.
Well, can I make a suggestion to make this easier? I think
I'm always for that.
Sorry, with regard to item 7C, the Board of Trustees authorized the mayor to sign the Weston Sampson proposal dated 10/16/2020 in the amount of $15,900 for their services, in responding to the Orange County Department of Health's comment letter, items 1 and 3. If we just define it that way, then you're done and dusted, and we don't need to modify that thing much.
Yeah, agreed. And we can go back to the recording because I'm going to accept your changes now and call a vote. We can go back to the notes and in the record correct the resolution to reflect what we did. Okay?
Yep.
All right. So I'm going to accept the revision presented by Trustee McHugh. And so essentially, I'm asking to approve the mayor signing the Weston and Sampson proposal responding to the OCDOH letter. May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Well done. All right.
I'm
so-
sorry. I'm sorry, just for the record, was that Trustee Shaw that we're gonna, yeah. Second, I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we good to go?
You did.
Yep.
All right. So now we have a similar situation. Resolution approving the mayor to sign the W&S proposal to proceed with the CCTV and manhole investigation of Pond 3 sewer pipe system. May I have a second?
I'll second it and then discussion.
All right, yeah, and then of course, yeah, and discussion. Let's go around the horn. Trustee McHugh?
I mean, as far as I'm concerned, we've got a bit of a chicken and egg phenomenon going on right now because what under new business, resolution C approving the mayor to sign Weston Sampson proposal to conduct post-construction flow isolation of subbasin 2 and 10 and prepare the required summary letter report to the New York State DEC. That has to take priority over everything else. What the proposal that's currently we're discussing is a potential subset, but I believe what we need to do with regard to being compliant with our INI and our speedies permit is do resolution number C first, because what we have to do is a post-mortem on the money we've just spent and are spending with Arrow Engineering with regard to INI. So what basically we're doing is we're doing this project. They're going to be wrapped up by December 20th. Then a flow analysis has to be done. We have to do it when there's heavy precipitation. So it's going to be March and April when the flow analysis is done. Then we're going to look at our flows through our sewer plant at that time to see if we're at 95% or better of capacity at the sewer plant. That's the metric that the DEC is expecting us, or what we're trying to achieve as a result of the expense that we've done. Post that, if we've achieved that, theoretically, we don't need to do any more. If we have not achieved that, then there's a critical path that's defined in this proposal on November 16th of additional areas of interest that we should look. One of them is pond number 3, but there's 2 other areas that we haven't done root clearing or anything. So I think we're jumping the gun with regard to that. So my personal preference is we approve resolution C, which is part of something that we're mandated to do with regard to the DEC and doing a post-flow analysis. And then from there, everything else will flow. No pun intended. So
No, I
that's
understand.
my 2.
No, I understand exactly what you're saying. And I think that what I've done is I've talked to Joseph of Weston and Sampson and about that specific issue. And, you know, the idea is to take what we've agreed to do, what we've given permission to do in terms of I&I, and substitute back in this to include it in the original approval. And the reason to move it, to do that, to make an exception to the approval we already had, is because of its proximity to Pond 3. And Jeff recommending that we do the CCTV next there, because there's the potential for leakage into Pond 3. So my view is if you approve me signing it, I will not sign it unless we deal with these successfully, these issues you just mentioned.
Right, so I guess I don't want to belabor this because my concern is, yes, Pond 3 is a problem, but two other areas which have been identified by Weston and Sampson are along Tuxedo Lake.
Right, the two trunks.
Right, that's that's our drinking water. So I would be far more concerned about effluent INI into our drinking water rather than pond number 3. So I'm more concerned about how we prioritize this. All of these things are incredibly important, and I think we all agree on that. And the question is how we allocate scarce resources, manage the DEC, and manage our engineering expenses to come out with the optimal solution.
Yeah, that's well put. So in addition to that, we have the Overton situation that we need, is another variable. So what I recommend to show progress here is to authorize me to sign the Pond 3. But the caveat will be, I will not sign it unless the board is satisfied with our approach, what the DEC says we can do. And if it's, if we can also include the 2 branches. But anyway, this way we can decide something between the meetings. That's really where I'm coming from, because we do have that December deadline.
Sorry, just to be clear, I know of no December deadline.
I'm sorry.
Harold Engineering finishes their substantial completion on December 20th. Then they have a year to finish up. But in between that, and this is item number C that we're talking about under new business, with regard to flow analysis, Weston Sampson will be doing flow analysis. From there, they can identify if there were any problems that Arrow Engineering did through flow analysis and potential CCTV usage. So to me, it's just a bit of a chicken and egg. I think we're all driving in the same place. I'm just more concerned about the sequencing and what we're communicating, because we've got a task at hand that's mandated by the DEC, and that should be, as far as I'm concerned, our priority. And then we have these ancillary issues which we believe they're problematic, but we don't know, and we don't know if they're the worst or there's 2 others that might be equally bad. The problem is, Jeff, as we rightly said, did root cutting along pond number 3 and found a lot of roots and everything, but he's not done the 2 other areas which were identified by engineer. So till we do that, and I mean, I'd be more inclined to go, you know what, I'll accept pond number 3 once we've investigated the other 2, but I just think we need to do a little bit more investigation internally before we go down that path, because I'm not sure we're going down the right decision tree.
All right, by that, do you mean opening up the manholes and doing what we did on Pond 3?
Exactly, yes.
Not the CCTV.
Correct.
Yeah, until we decide. Okay, yeah, no, I think we can work with that. I think that we can work with that and take this off the table and do a little more investigating, and before we make any decisions on going directly to Pond 3. So on the other hand, we could approve Pond 3. We could approve me to sign Pond 3 and do not implement it until we've done all the other investigation. And at that point, we could either rip it up or would not have to go to another meeting. What do you think about that?
Yeah. Sorry, Chris, I've been monopolized.
Just a couple of questions. So what we're talking about for 8C is something that we generally have to do upon completion of this project that's substantially completed on December 20th for the flow analysis.
Correct.
So that's money that we have to spend. Was that in the budget, or is that?
Yes.
Okay, that was budget.
That was part of the budget. If you look at the line item for I&I, we got 121,000. It's within that number.
Okay, so now what the mayor has for 7C, which is what we're really talking about right now for pond number 3, you're saying could be the same process that we have to do at 2 different sections along Tuxedo Lake. If after we open manhole covers and look for roots and cut roots, we determine that we have to explore that with CCTV as well, right?
Well, first we would do flow analysis because that's cheaper than CCTV.
Okay.
But the issue is we need to do a postmortem of what we've done. And then from there, then we can figure out whether these are the 3 highest priority or if there's something else that comes up.
Right, and how it fits in with our I&I requirement.
Right, so bottom line is 8C is part of the requirement. We're already doing work that completes December 20th, part of the requirement with the DEC. These other 3 sections, the one in pond number 3 and the 2 in Tuxedo Lake, aren't part of a requirement that we have to do right now. It's just something we know is an issue and that at some point we have to address, which is kind of getting back to what's the priority, the 1 or 2 in Tuxedo Lake or the 3rd one in pond number 3?
Yeah, I would say that's a fair summary.
Okay.
And just to be clear, those areas were identified by the engineer and agreed to by the DEC 6 years ago. So they've been identified, but what we've been doing is sequentially going through and addressing different areas in the park.
Okay.
Right. And I mean, my only point about pond 3 is in 6 years, certain pipes have maybe burst and other things. So, what we got approved then is flexible. I'm sure if we went to the DEC and said, look, these are the ones you approved because our engineers pointed it out, but we found something that's really dire. And, but again, that's fine. That's just part of the decision-making process. So do you want to approve me to sign the letter contingent on the fact that we all agree at a certain point it might be appropriate?
But wouldn't that appropriate point be months from now?
Well, hopefully it wouldn't be. That's my point. We could do it. We could
is
table it. That's fine. We could table it till December. But
yeah. Sorry.
We could table it December or try and resolve it this month. What do you guys want to do?
I'm going to just respond to Chris's comment, which is the 8C, which is the postmortem on what Harold Engineering is doing.
Yeah.
The flow analysis, which is done, has to be done where we have high precipitation and ground thaw. So we're talking March, April is when the data will be collected and then put together in a report, which obviously the village will have input and then submitted to the DEC. So to me, that's where the decision tree all of a sudden, we'll be looking at it going, okay, we've made a lot of progress or we haven't remotely made the kind of progress we want. And then it's going to be, what do we think we have to do? And then I would be far more inclined to go, yes, we need to do the two sites on Tuxedo Lake and Pond 3 and spend the money on a flow analysis there to move it forward. And then hopefully by that time, we've got some feedback which way Overton wants to go with regard to their project on the 3-to-1 offset.
Right. So the bottom line is we don't know where we're going to have to spend our money until they do this flow analysis in March or December. And at that point, we're going to know that we're going to have to spend more money to fix something, or it's fixed enough right now and we can decide where else that money goes. It might shift the priorities.
That's exactly, yes.
Yeah. So I don't see that an immediate need to prove anything else, especially if it's outside the budget now, until we kind of find out what we have to do. Because then we find ourselves in a position that we're forced to do something that we already spent some money and we didn't have to do anything.
As well,
We're not forced to spend money until agreement is signed. But I understand your point. So why don't we table this and work together to gather that information, Trustee McHugh, and we'll take it from there. Is that acceptable to everybody?
So I question then, you're talking about tabling it until March or April?
We've tabled it, so there's no specific date to bring it back to the table.
But that's basically revisiting it then. in March or April.
Yeah, but based on a whole bunch of new information.
Right.
Right. We'll have empirical data, which will hopefully support a course of action.
Yeah, understood. So are we generally in agreement, we're going to table this?
Works for me.
Okay, on to new business. We are going to be having discussions in the very near future about village-wide property tax assessments. A municipal-wide assessment is the best way to ensure that assessments are fair and accurate. And we all know that in the village, there's a lot of discrepancies. And the reassessment includes an evaluation of the market value of properties in the community. And it's based on changes in the real estate market. The assessor will determine which assessments need to be increased or decreased. Our last reassessment was done in the 70s, mid 70s. Typically, they're done every 4 to 7 years in municipalities, and many boards have known about this for a long time. We're trying to bring it to the table. It's a matter of cost, return on investment, and everything else. So after several years without a reassessment, some properties will be overassessed and some will be underassessed. This is because some properties will have increased in value while others may have decreased or stayed the same. Without a reassessment, all the properties will continue to pay the same amount of taxes. So to that end, for the purpose of educating ourselves on the process of reassessment, this week we have an appointment with John Wollum, Real Property Services Administrator for the New York State Department of Taxation and Finance, and the Eric Rusher. He's the Director of Orange County Real Property Tax Service Agency, and they're going to be giving us a presentation on this, and we will then share that information. And other than that, I just wanted to put that on the record for everybody in case there's some questions down the road. Do the trustees have any comments?
Not this time. See what the presentation says when you send us the info.
Okay. Anyone else? Trustees? Okay.
I mean, I'll give some context. I believe John Moon did it, 2 or 3 administrations. He looked into it. I think it was $250,000. Paul and I had looked at it, I think 2 or 3 years ago, and it was more a hybrid solution with somebody Brian had recommended, and that I believe the order of magnitude was around 180K. And to be honest, that's what was driving behind the building permit issue and everything is it is another form of equalization and trying to get things. My concern is, given the state of affairs in the real estate market, this might not be the best time to do it, but I certainly full-heartedly support us going down the path, getting costs, and getting a comfort factor of what we think the costs are, and then we can make a determination whether or not we want to pursue it. So
yeah, absolutely. And I do believe that when we asked John to do that, those quotes were from actual consultants, vendors that you would hire to do this.
I think one was Orange County, and then the other was outsourcing.
Yeah, I'm looking, like you, I'm looking forward to getting more information, and then we'll see where it goes. Okay, thanks. All right, so we're going to be, what you may have on your agenda is the approving 500. That's no longer on the agenda. We're not going to be doing that. So now we have a resolution approving the mayor to sign the Weston and Sampson proposal to conduct post-construction flow isolation for subbasins 2 and 10 and prepare the required summary letter report to the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation. May I have a second?
Second.
All right, so what do you guys want to discuss on that one?
I think I've beaten you to death on that one. That's what.
So do you want to go through this resolution?
I think I've already kind of summarized it. If anybody's got any questions, I'll try.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, all right, before we move forward, I'd like to hear from Trustee Gluck and the other trustees if they have any comments.
No, I think this is something we do need to do. It's part of our flow management plan. It's part of the program, if you will. And I think we should move forward with it.
Okay. Trustee Casker?
My comments stand from previous discussion on 7C.
Okay. So then, are we end of discussion? Okay, I'll take the roll, starting with Trustee Casker. Yay or nay?
Yay.
Trustee Gluck?
Yes.
Trustee McHugh?
Yes.
Trustee Shaw?
Yes.
Okay, it is passed.
And I'm sorry, just to be clear, it was Trustee Gluck who seconded?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yay.
You'll get to know the voices soon. Okay, so the next resolution is the appointment of a DPW worker, Dominic Posta. And may I have a second on that?
Second.
Any discussion? We did discuss this last week. We had a recommendation that I accepted, and also a strong recommendation from Sue Haywood. And Jeff is interested, supports it as well. So I'm comfortable approving it. If everyone else is, yes.
And Mayor, all the background checks and drug tests and all of that have been completed and signed off, and the chief did that.
Correct. Thank you, Chief. All right, so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, very good. The next resolution is to declare police equipment and guns as surplus. Any discuss? Oh, may I have a second?
Second.
That was McHugh.
Yeah.
Any discussion?
The only thing I'll say is with regard to this is with regard to we're declaring gun surplus, but we're also authorizing the chief the ability to sell one of the guns to one of the officers at a fair market value. So I'm not sure if we need to put that in there or not.
I don't think so.
Okay.
Any other comments? All in favor? I'll start with Chris.
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
Alan?
Aye.
Tinka?
Aye.
Ayes have it. All right, we're making some progress here. All right. The next resolution is to award the bid on surplus police vehicle, on our surplus police vehicle. That was the auction. All the supporting documents have been handed out. May I have a second?
Second.
McHugh. All right, so any discussion? May I call the roll? Trustee Casker.
Aye.
Gluck.
Aye.
McHugh.
Aye.
Shaw.
Aye.
Ayes have it. Okay. Yes, someone have a comment?
I think you missed resolution D, the county taxes on village water.
Yes, thank you.
Debbie just texted me saying you missed that one.
Ah, okay. Thank you very much. A resolution approving annual exemption of county taxes on village water facilities located in the town of Tuxedo known as tax map number 13-3-12. May I have a second?
Second.
All right, so any discussion?
I just have a question. Why do we have to do this every year? Isn't it something in perpetuity, or we just?
No, it's every year that it has to be done.
Okay.
Thank you, Debbie.
Yeah.
Okay, so any other discussion? Okay, I'll call the roll. Trustee Casker.
Aye.
Gluck.
Aye.
McHugh.
Aye.
Shaw. Okay, thank you. The ayes have it.
Fire commissioner, you missed. Too.
Yeah, did I skip that one too?
Yeah.
Huh. Okay, we have a resolution to reappoint fire commissioners Jeff Dowding and Paul Eichengreen. May I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All right, I'll call the vote. Trustee Shaw,
Aye.
Casker,
I was wondering why they've been so nice to me, but yes.
Gluck,
Aye.
McHugh.
Aye.
Ayes have it. Okay, thanks, guys. I'm just laughing at myself for missing resolution. All right, so now, at the risk of doing that again, I'll just double check. We're all the way down. We've done appointment of DPW worker, declare the police. All right, now we need to award the bid on the surplus police vehicle. Is that correct?
I believe you did that one. I think you
Okay.
took a vote on that one, right?
Yes.
Did I?
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, the next is a resolution approving the annual bird count by the Fick Nature Association. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any questions?
I've never seen the results. Do they? It says annual, so they do this every year?
Yes.
We've approved it every year.
Do we get the results?
We don't ask for them. I'm sure we could, but.
Okay. No, just curious.
Yeah, no, it's a good
I wonder
question.
what the point was then.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. I've never actually followed up on it either. Any other discussion? All in favor? I'll start with Trustee Gluck,
Yes.
McHugh,
Yes.
Casker,
Aye, yes.
Shaw. Okay, ayes have it. All right, so I think we're on to approving.
No, Mayor?
Yes.
You inadvertently, when you had so many different resolutions, the last one is the approval to re-levy a list of unpaid village taxes, Orange County Commissioner of Finance. That one disappeared. So
Yeah, that
you
one
need
disappeared.
Yeah,
Okay,
we need
so
to have that
we
one.
want that one though.
Yeah.
So does anyone have that agenda with that on it?
Yes.
Okay, do you mind just reading the resolution? I mean,
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so it's 8J, levy unpaid village taxes to Orange County. Motion that the village clerk be authorized to send to the County of Orange Commissioners of Finance the attached parcel list of unpaid 2020-2021 village taxes totaling $144,600.16 for levy onto the January 2021 town-county tax bill of each parcel, and that the parcel list has been compared to the original tax warrant / tax roll and found to be correct.
Second. Any discussion? I'll call the roll. Trustee Shaw,
Aye.
Gluck,
Aye.
McHugh,
Go, aye.
Aye.
Hasker,
Aye.
Casker,
Aye.
ayes have it. Okay, so I think we're done with the resolutions in new business. Does everyone agree?
You
Yes.
have minutes to approve.
Yeah, and right, and now we're going to go into, don't worry, Debbie, we will not let you down.
Thank
You've
you.
done a hell of a lot of work on these and we appreciate
I
it.
certainly did.
And we appreciate it, absolutely. Before we move on to the 4 that are listed on the agenda, did I catch wind of something that we need to do on a previously approved set of minutes that we need to modify?
Not that I know of.
Okay, very good. Resolution approving September 14th, 2020 special meeting. May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'll do a general voice call here. All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Resolution approving September 29th, 2020 organization meeting. May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, good. Thank you. Resolution approving September 29th, 2020 regular meeting. May I have a second?
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That was Trustee Gluck, Elizabeth, doing the second.
Thank you.
Ayes have it. Resolution approving October 21st, 2020 regular meeting. May I have a second?
Mayor, excuse me, board. This is the one, I think, to address your question, Mayor.
Oh.
There was a typographical error in one of the resolutions. If the board can move to adopt the October 21st, 2020 minutes as corrected, confirming that a typographic error in one of the resolutions as corrected should reflect without pay in paragraph 3. If you approve that motion, it should be sufficient.
All right, thank you. I'll take that. Can I have a second? I'll second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, everyone's an aye?
Well, who moved the motion? Mayor, I'm not sure you could second it if you moved it. Right?
I seconded it.
Who moved it?
It was,
Yeah.
I'm accepting the revision that John just gave us.
So, okay, so Mayor, so to Trustee Gluck's point, then another trustee should second it. Yes.
Second.
Oh, okay. Thank
The
you.
Gluck, Mayor's proposing it, Gluck seconding it, unanimous approval. Elizabeth.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You're welcome. Okay, so I believe that brings us to the audit of claims and then adjourning to executive session. Before I do that, does anyone have any comments on the regular agenda? Okay, I move that the Board of Trustees leave the regular meeting to enter into executive session to discuss litigation and matters related to the employment of a particular person. May I have a second?
Second.
Anyone opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you. And we would like to go into a breakout room, Elizabeth. And do you know how to do that?
I think so.
You've done a great job so far.
Thank you.
John, is there any tips you want to give Elizabeth to get us into a breakout room?
So there should be an icon on the bottom right where you see participants, share screen, etc. for breakout rooms. If you click that, then you'll see the participants' names. And to the right of it, you click a little icon and assign them to a room. If you make me a host, I could probably do it too.
Okay, just a minute, please. And who is, are you going in as well, John?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. I don't know, I'm trying to do it.
There you go. I see it. I'm not sure if
There?
everyone else does.
Are they
Yeah,
it?
it looks like everyone's going. I suggest, yeah, good job. So you can pause the recording now because at the end of the meeting, at the final end, if you don't pause it now, you'll get all of executive session. So I suggest that you pause it.
Okay.
And then when we come back into the meeting, just restart it.
Okay, so I should pause it. I was distracted, so I didn't quite listen.
Yeah, so if you
pause it, okay.
pause the recording until until the board decides to come out of executive session, and then when they reopen into the public, you can then restart the recording.
And so does everybody know where, like Tinka, are you okay?
Here, I'm gonna join.
So this is Chris Hansen. I'm part of the general public and I can still see you. Just
Yeah, you haven't invited.
If I can see you, I'll let you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Elizabeth, Trustee Gluck is under iPad 3 as a participant.
Oh, I'm
so you
sorry.
Have to, yeah, you have to allocate him to breakout room. Yep.
Sorry, Alan.
Don't worry.
Oh, I think I missed Trustee McHugh. I apologize.
And now, and John, so do you know? Oh, John is in there now? Okay, good. Okay, I think they're all in there. Okay, so I'm going to pause the meeting for now. Thank you.